Hello and welcome to the Fuck It All podcast. My name is Casey Lett Gordon and I'm your host. This is a podcast for modern women redefining what it means to have it all. And today, like most bonus episodes, I'm your guest and your host. So here we go. A topic I want to dig into today that really has just been, screaming to me over the past several weeks is this idea around representation and how much representation matters, especially when it comes to being brave or going through moments in time where you feel alone. I know there's so many times in my journey that I've felt really alone, and that's been the catalyst for me wanting to tell these stories. Is I would have really liked to had other stories when I was experiencing that. You're catching me literally after I just sat outside on my back porch and caught up with a dear friend, someone that actually about 3 years ago we sought out to create a business very similar to the one that I'm looking to build here with Fuck It All, about what does it mean to have it all? How do you, as women, understand what you like, what you dislike? How do you build a life around that? And I'll tell you a small anecdote around the idea of representation and why it matters. So my friend, she was the first woman I ever knew that was an incredibly talented executive, had been very successful professionally, but told her employer what were the terms she needed for her family in order to take on the role. So we were catching up over coffee. We had been introduced. When she hopefully is a guest on the show, we'll talk about our meet cute story. But she said, "Yeah, I take every summer off to be with my children." And she worked at a large corporate company here in town. And it dawned on me, I said, "Wait, what do you mean you take every summer off?" And she said, "Yeah, I take, through the summers off with my children." And that was one of the caveats that I told the company when I came to work with them. So I work 9 months a year, 10 months a year. I do my projects and then I take those few months off. And then I return in the fall when they go back to school. And it blew my mind. I was not yet a mother, but one of the things that overwhelmed me about eventually becoming one was how much I loved my work and feeling this pull between these two worlds. And how were you excellent at both? And I heard from her that she defined what she needed and then she asked for it. And then the company said yes. And so she was also one of the first people that I ever knew to really introduce me to this concept of a multi-passionate entrepreneur. And that's a term that Marie Forleo has actually coined in her book, Everything is Figure Outable. But this person, this woman was the first person I ever knew that. And she said, I built my career based on what is it that I need to make for my family or for myself, my own comfort level. So here's a number. And then what are my skills and what are the things that I enjoy doing? How do I like spending my days? And then she mapped backwards. And I think that, my background's in strategy and sales, problem solving, and any of you out there that's listening, this is a very natural way that we work in the business world, but we don't always do it for ourselves. And so to hear this woman who, had two children, happy marriage, very successful professionally, saying that she was building the life she wanted, it opened my eyes to something I had never understood, because I thought that if you built your own business, especially as a woman, it was a hobby. It was the flexible schedule you needed for you to be a good mom. And what I heard was actually the opposite: is here's what I need for my family to work, but I'm going to build a career that I want. And so that stuck with me. That was 3 or 4 years ago now, and I've thought about that so many times over this journey. I had an opportunity come across my table just this past week, and I had to say, what were the terms that I would accept to take a full time or this, this formal offer or opportunity? And for me, I knew exactly what that was. And that was that it could be a fractional role. I did not want to take a full time role because I'm in the midst of building my own thing. And there was such a freedom to articulate that. And I've been thinking a lot about this as women, why we don't always feel comfortable to articulate our needs. And some of it, I really don't even know. Maybe it's a skill that we we have a deficit in, that we don't even know how to do that work. This is literally the conversation my girlfriend and I were just having. Um, and so it dawned on me so much that in my experience, as again, and I've mentioned this in other episodes, but a white, straight, educated middle class woman, if representation matters to me, if I did not feel like certain parts of my world could be possible, or that certain things would, I didn't see other women who looked like me doing different things than the norm, I don't know that I would have ever been able to dream up where I am today. And so I think about any time a person of color, members of the LGBTQ plus community walks into a meeting or walks into a scenario or walks into a room, and I'm putting this more in the business lens, but they do not see people who also look like them, who have had similar life experiences. That matters because I know I don't bring my best self when I have an audience that doesn't look like me at all or share any of those life experiences, or it's unknown to me if they have the same values. And so I've been thinking about this a lot around this podcast and the business I hope to create. Is there's been moments in my times, it could have been graduating from school and figuring out what my job was, times that I've maybe gone against my parents' wishes because it was things that I wanted, relationships, job struggles, where I felt immensely alone because people don't organically talk about the messy parts. They talk about the end state. They tell you this story, this beautiful version with a bow where they can look back and understand all the meaning. But I think there's power in talking to people when they're in the throes of the mess, and also that have been bold enough to chart a different path, because then maybe we don't feel so alone. Maybe we don't feel so lost. And I think that we can't look to somebody's experience and recreate that in our own lives. We're going to have to live our own life, walk our own path. But can we potentially develop the behaviors or the skills or the muscles, or even just know that another world is possible by hearing other people's stories? And so I hadn't had the chance to catch up with this friend in a long time. Our lives have just been moving quickly. We do so over email, or actually ran into her right at the beginning of COVID at the airport. So that's literally how our catch-ups have been. But I was just reminded as I was sitting down with her that she was the first person that ever showed me what this could be and what it meant to be a multi-passionate entrepreneur, what it meant to ask for what you want as it pertained to your family and your kids. And it was okay to bring that into the work world. And I just invite any of you listening to really reflect on what is it that you want, and recognize that the worst someone can say is no. It's been a good lesson for me. And sometimes their no is just a redirecting to where you need to go. I posted about it on social, but I've been really digging into Gabby Bernstein's Super Attractor, and the idea that the universe is sending you where you need to go, that there's messages and energy, and that redirection, a no or a failure or a mess up or a dead end is not really that. It's just a redirection to where you were meant to be. It's been really comforting to me in times, especially right now, where I feel like I'm stumbling through. And so for any of you out there that are saying, what would be my good next read, I strongly suggest it. I swear I should get endorsements for every author I read, because I just become their evangelist. So I challenge each of you to tell a story to those immediately around you. It can be family, it can be friends, colleagues, of one of those times that you felt really alone, how you dealt with it, maybe something that feels really brave or courageous in your life, and realize that that has a pretty massive impact on those around you. When I told my friend that today, she said, "Hey, you're the second person recently that's told me that." And I think it was pretty cool for that to dawn on her, that her representation and her willingness to challenge the status quo and then talk about those stories impacted two people's lives pretty dramatically. She said her friend had also left corporate and started her own thing. So um, that's my bonus for the week. I'm going to be on here weekly, every Thursday, dropping a bonus episode. These are going to be thoughts from where I'm at in the week. I'll try to be as honest in my highs and lows. This is Casey Lett Gordon. I'm your host of the Fuck It All podcast. Today's episode is a bonus thought on how representation matters and how one woman's story of asking for what she wants really opened my eyes up to every person, women, people of color, anybody that's just different can create meaningful change, because that representation of somebody looking like you or having your story looking back at you, it allows you to be your best self. It allows you to ask for what you need, to be in tune with what you need, and bring your brilliant, creative self to the forefront. And it was pretty eye-opening to me at a very small and macro level. And I hope that you guys get a little value out of that. This is the Fuck It All podcast. We'll talk to you next time.